All right, welcome back. We're going to keep on going. We got some sunshine, which is nice. So, last time I shared the story of me heading out from my hometown to get all the way to where I would eventually start my first job outside of school as a high school science teacher. I was the high school science teacher for a school that was in East Palo Alto, California. So I had never been to California. I picked there honestly because I liked Steph Curry. I liked Macklemore, but Seattle was rainy. I liked Lord of the Rings, but like New Zealand was kind of far. So I went with the Bay, because why not? I looked for jobs, got one, and I was this science teacher at this school where, well, let me first start out by telling you a little bit about East Palo Alto. So the Bay Area, maybe you know, is pretty rich. There's a lot of people there, and there's a lot of money going on there. Things are pretty expensive. Specifically, housing is pretty expensive, and neighborhoods kind of got pushed off to this place or that place. And if you ever heard of if you ever hear of Palo Alto, Palo Alto is where there's Facebook, right? So you ever drive in the streets in Palo Alto, nice paved, beautiful new pavement. You don't even see the cracks on the roads. They got these oak trees on either side of the road. Oh, it's beautiful. Sidewalks, good to go. Grasses, beautiful houses. And then you get into East Palo Alto. You cross the 101, and suddenly it's a bunch of potholes on streets that haven't been repaired in a while, and chain link fences with dead grass lawns, bars on windows, and it's just right across the highway from like super rich. It was nuts, and that's where I was working. That was the school that I was going to work at. We had an avocado tree in the house, or in the yard that I got, because I eventually lived there for a little bit, and it was the worst tasting avocado I've ever had. The ground was soiled, right? Like there were generations of problems here. I was on Pulgas Avenue. Pulgas is Spanish for fleas. I was on Flea Street. Like, we had a crackhead run up and down the street every day. He was weirdly on time. At least I think he was, based on my calculations when I was there. Who knows what was going on when I wasn't. It was real, these kids growing up in this neighborhood. It had gone away from being more racially black and a lot more like crimes and gangs and things like that, toward more Latino. Mexican families were coming in, more families, but the families are still working all the time, and so some of the culture is still there. And this is not to say it's anything racial. It's just this is what the demographic was, and like you can see in the community itself, that the businesses that are around are things like liquor stores, gun stores, tattoo parlors. Like one Mexican restaurant, the restaurant, everybody went to that. But like the options that the people had, that the kids had to look at, the grocery store was the convenience store. So they're not going and getting juice or milk or something. They're going and getting a 5-hour energy or Rockstar. Yeah, that was the one. The Rockstar energy. They love their Rockstar and the Flamin' Hot Cheetos. These kids are subsiding on these things, and so I'm with them in school. Like this is their life, and I have one of them who I didn't know this at the time. This kid had a difficulty with where I told him to sit. He's a bigger kid, and I figured, he's just trying to be a goof. He just wants to sit in the back of the room because he doesn't want to pay attention. He just wants to be one of the cool kids in the back. That was the vibe I was getting. And it turns out that, like, maybe a little bit, but at the same time, like, this guy has had enough trauma in his life to make it so that he doesn't want anybody to have the opportunity to be behind him. And if you watch him at school for the course of a couple weeks, yeah, he always stands with his back to the wall. And like that means that these kids are growing up in what we call rough environments, right? Like I had another kid who, like, this kid, he was allowed to get away with anything, and it wasn't until I finally had a conference with his mom, and I realized that his mom was basically acting like my other kids. And this is why that kid was able to get away from with anything, because the age difference, that this girl had this baby when she was a kid, and so her brain hadn't been able to develop, and now suddenly she is in a new world that requires like work and rent and then a host of other things, of different relationships with people. And so the relationship that you have with your kid, it's not this standard, oh, I'm a parent and the kid is a kid and we are going to have this understanding. No, life is messy. This kid just kind of exists in the house that you also exist in. And maybe you're existing in a house that other people exist in too. And so you have all sorts of interactions with people. And then a lot of times the responsible, hardworking adults are off working jobs. And so then after school, these kids don't really have much supervision. And so they go and they get themselves into whatever they want to do, which, creates, I guess you could see, difficulties. And I was starting to see that this is a pattern, like babies having babies. It's where you can see who came from immigrants. Their parents were really hardworking, and so the kids that are really hardworking because their parents are telling them, don't blow this, versus who came from oopsies of, well, you were one of the ones that were coming in immigrant, and then you fell into life just kind of happened, and now what, you got a kid, now you got responsibilities, and maybe you hadn't had a chance to grow to the point where you feel like you can succeed in the world, right? Like this system, I was seeing it for the first time. I came from North Carolina. I came from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It has all this prestige, the people who go there, we wear collars and vests sometimes. We have a well as our mascot. Well, it's a ram, but like people love the well. It's on the symbols. It's very like Southern dignified. And so this Southern dignified place of mine that I would go to, I switched from my science major. I did still get the chemistry, but then I added on some education classes. So they had this program where they wanted to make teachers out of science majors. And so they let us take fewer education classes because they figured they could just teach us the science of education. So they taught us what's called pedagogy, which is the science of how to teach, which from another perspective is in a way the science of how humans learn, because kids are just little humans. And we learned all sorts of things. We learned slightly into the psychology field, where it's like more human development, what the kid wants to feel safe. But then, man, oh man, we spent a lot of time talking about institutionalization. Yeah, this is a big word. I don't know if you've heard it before. You may have. I don't mean anything condescending because it's a big word. But like institutionalization is a thing that is all over the place, and it's complicated, and so it's hard to talk about. Because I was sitting there, listening to these people tell me about how this group or that group of, say, racial or socioeconomic, as they would call it, how they have statistically been shown to be in these positions. So like they told us about the school to prison pipeline, how when you send kids to detention, it gets them normalized to expecting that the authority bringer is against them, and so then they will start to misbehave more, which then only inspires them to get in trouble with police once they're out of school, right? Or like the lunch thing, like making sure the kids are fed, and some kids are actually not being fed at school, so having the lunches to be able to have the nutrients because of how many calories that the brain is consuming. And I thought I was listening to like, oh man, you guys, I'm watching the news, like my life seems fine, I'm around university, like we're having a better standard of living than ever before, like you guys, you liberals just trying to tell me all this stuff. And then I went to where it was happening, the places that they were describing. It was the poorest school district in California, I think, that year at least. And I saw it. Like, whoa, it's very, very real. Oh my goodness gracious. And the systems aren't necessarily helping with it, right? Like, it's not that it's, oh, the kids have a messed up life. It's that, well, in the system itself, there are points of weakness for corruption, for people to take advantage of maybe government systems or parent money or whatever it might be. And then the system that we're set up with, when I was trying to teach, it made for, because people come in and go, it made for this hostile environment, right? This was a fascinating thing that came in. My kids, when I first started, kind of loved me. They very much enjoyed me. I had been working with kids for a while, and I was just kind of shifting from camp to school, where there's slightly more rigidness. I had a couple who were against me, and I didn't really understand at first, because, I would always get my kids to be on my side because we were playing games in camp. And I would eventually find out that these kids hated me and wanted to torture me because they had been through enough people, enough teachers that they did love. And those teachers could not handle the difficulties of the system that they were in, whether it was coming from the neighborhoods and the kids as they're growing up from that, or from the top down of the administration of the school was not giving the support necessary, or creating situations or environments where things were not good, right? Like for example, one of them, I remember I had this kid who was switched between different classes, and every day for a week tried to cuss me out, yell at me, and I told him, go take a walk, just get out of my class. And then I wanted to talk with him at the end of the week, being like, hey man, like every day this week, what's up? Like, what's going on? And I asked him, like, is this because you've been switched? Like, are you trying to do something? And he got so angry at me. He's like, you don't know nothing. He actually threatened me. And he did it in front of the one guidance counselor and the one principal, like the top dogs of the school. And like, he walked in between them to threaten me, and they let it happen. And his punishment was that he was allowed to just kind of skip my class for about 2 weeks, take it easy. Turns out the dude had been caught smoking cigarettes, and he was going through nicotine withdrawal, and he was very irritable, and they didn't tell me any of that. Like there was no, it was crazy. So like, that type of system mixed with the environment that you're in is going to cause what we call teacher burnout, right? Like, a lot of teachers can very much relate with this. Maybe not to the extremes, but it exists all over. No matter what school you're in, you have nonsense coming from above, lack of help, or imposing of something I have to do. And then you have the kids, where you're on the front lines. So when the kids hear what you have to do based on what you're told you have to do, they take it out on you. And they're kids. Like, they're gonna be emotional. They're gonna be reactive. They're children. That's the point. We're kind of getting them to learn how to hold themselves. But it takes a while, because they're still kids, and there's a lot of stuff going on, right? And so I definitely got burned out. Whoa. I felt like I was not ready for it, for the difficulty. So, I didn't finish this. The thing that I found, the biggest difficulty, was a psychological one, where the kids, specifically the ones that needed the most support, they would have had an experience in their life where they gained a teacher, and that teacher gave them the support and love that they wanted, and maybe they grew an attachment to that teacher. And unfortunately, we're not teaching how to become unattached in schools, and so that attachment grew, and then when that teacher left because of reasons that had nothing to do with the kid, right? They loved the kid, obviously. They loved the kid. It has nothing to do with the kid. It's the situation. It's that we are people too, and we have to take care of ourselves. And man, school is a lot of time. And like, I would wake up in the morning. I would get up out of bed. I would get on my bicycle, or I'd get in my car. I'd go right down to the school. I'd get there. I'd start the day. I'd do the day. And then day would end. I would go home. I would change clothes and relax for like an hour, and then I'd go right back to school to plan for the next day, because I stupidly decided I wanted to try and teach my big curriculum of this big idea that I wanted to share. I was like, oh yeah, first year teacher, let me also try to build a curriculum, improvised live stream, like do it live. That's nuts. What an insane goal for me to try and get. But I didn't also have many people around me to tell me that that was a bad idea, right? I had curricula, like material from other teachers, because teachers steal, it's good to do that. It's just I wanted to get my idea out, and I wasn't prepared for the difficulty of that mixed with the difficulty of what school has become. And so that difficulty made me need to leave, like many other people have left. And in a way, it's a chicken and egg scenario, because we have the kids who are tough sometimes, and then there's all the other stuff that the teachers have to deal with. But in addition, the kids are tough sometimes, and so the teachers get burned out, and the kids are tough sometimes because the teachers end up getting burned out, and those burned out teachers leave, and then those kids, they have an abandonment in them, right? They wanted to be able to connect with this person probably for longer than just the 1 year or a couple months that that teacher had in them before they burned out. And because that teacher has left, the next teacher that comes in, they're not going to make that mistake again. They know better, because they loved the last teacher and then they got hurt. And this new teacher comes in and they seem really cool, but if they love this new teacher, then they might get hurt again. And so they actually go toward the opposite. They want to hate you, because if they hate you, then when you leave, they'll be right, and they'll be right the whole time, and they won't be hurt. And they think that, you know what, you're going to leave, so you might as well do it now. You might as well get over with it, right? Or get it over with. You might as well go away, and you know what, I'm going to make it go faster. I'm going to make your life awful. I had this other, I guess, co-teacher, another teacher, a co-worker. She was in another classroom. I had my break early, second period. I wish I did not have second period break. You guys, I was so ready with energy, and they just said, hey, sit on the bench for a bit. Anyway, and then when I'm tired, I'm like, break, and they're like, not till the end of the day. But yeah, so then I would talk with her in second period break, because she had it too, and she would come in and she would spend the period a lot of times crying to me about how difficult it is, about how her kids seem to hate her, about how awful her classroom is. She just wants to teach, she just wants to love these kids, and these kids have found that they can utilize pack dynamics, and it's an energy game, right? I had worked with kids before. I knew how to hold the energy and hold the space so that they accepted me as an authority. But for her, she was practicing that. First year teacher, right? She'd never done that before. And they sensed weakness and they went in. And the only reason they wanted to torture her in the first place is because they thought that she was going to leave. And the only reason that she would leave is if she's having a terrible time, which means the kids are creating that so that they don't have to suffer possible loss, because they want to love. They do. All these kids want to love. Everybody wants to love. And this stuff that I was like, that's not real. When I was in college in my ivory tower of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, we talked about these things existing in books, maybe in videos, maybe in TED Talks. And finally, I had the chance to go and see it. Actually see it with my own eyes. What is this place that we've made? I had a chance to see the poorest version of it. Or one of the poorest versions, because let's be real, we're still in the Bay Area. I had a chance to see how real this system can be on a person and how it affects the person. And that we are all just products of our system. At the time, I wasn't ready for that. I had had other things happen in my life before I left college that I wasn't able to be secure enough to be good enough for them to last the whole year. It was going to do more harm to me, I knew. And so I decided I needed to separate. I do still feel bad that I did separate, but I do not regret it. I do still have the betterment of these kids at heart. I would have them say, "I'm going to college," every time they left my room. That was their hall pass to leave at the end of the class. To try and get them to visualize, create their own world, a world that is different than the systems that they were put into. When I quit, they ended up changing it to, "I am going to quit." I did. And I hope that they can take at least the lesson that comes from this, which is when you are able to visualize something and you speak it into existence and you do it every day, you can change what it is. So really, you don't have to go to college. You don't have to do what your parents did or be doomed to the neighborhood that you're in. You can change it. And people are going to hurt you. And usually has nothing to do with you. They changed my sign. That hurt me, but I know it doesn't have anything to do with me. It has to do with their feelings towards what they thought I could be for them. I heard from one of them actually like a year ago or so. And he's doing great. I really hope the rest of y'all are doing great. I think I still have put away somewhere. I have the attendance roll. I probably know all your names. Oh, I definitely have your email list. Yo, if you remember, if you still have that, no, it's an email from the school. I have your names though. Some of you put Gmails. Hope you're doing well. I'll see y'all in the next one.